So the unit has possibly 3 or 4 sections within, okay? So within those sections, you're going to break that down for students, okay? And the way we do that, we organize that information. When we sit as a team, we do a smarter planning. We go through that process, we look at data, and we determine which areas of that data the kids fell short. And with our curriculum and that information, we help build this process, okay? So that's the sole purpose of using the unit organizer, is to make sure that the kids understand that this is what we're going to cover for the unit, this is what we need to do, okay? So now, as you can see for number 1, the current unit is personal financial literacy, okay? Number 2 will be, what was our last unit? So the last unit, we talked about data representation and analysis, okay? And this is a math one that I'm doing. So when we get into the next unit, the students will understand that they're going to review rational numbers, concepts, and operations, okay? Now, when we get into number 4, bigger picture mean, what is the overall subject of this unit that we're covering? So the overall subject of the unit is numbers in the real world. So this particular topic falls under numbers in the real world, okay? So when we look at number 5, 5 is our unit map. When we think about that unit map piece, that's the bread and butter to what the kids have to understand that they are going to cover within this current unit of financial literacy, okay? So when I look at number 5, I'm gonna say, boys and girls, the personal financial literacy is about, click please, okay. Press enter. Okay, so it won't show that. But personal financial literacy is about whatever that definition is. Once you plan, you will place that there, okay? And then you would get off into branches of what comes under personal financial literacy according to your curriculum, what that looks like, okay? And we'll work with that, okay? Next slide, okay? With the resources we're going to use our actual TEA manual, our curriculum guide, and anything that we talked about as a team, looking at the data from what we need to maybe go back and refer to, any material on that area. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, so now here we go, okay? So now when we think back at that unit map piece, we know that personal financial literacy is about managing my money by comparing bank fees, balancing a check register, distinguishing between debit and credit cards, and as you can see, I put the TEKS for what I'm covering for each one of those pieces. A credit report and its value, okay, by describing and explaining a credit report and its value. Now, I put the TEKS here because I'm putting myself as that teacher right now. As I'm going to teach this to students, I need to remember which TEK goes along with this subject matter. Now, when you do this with kids, you're going to make this kid-friendly enough to where you don't have to use TEKS with them. You're just going to put the subject of what they're going to cover, okay? So, now, I always tell teachers, as a teacher, I like using the vocabulary, and I like having that vocabulary accessible for students, okay? As well as myself as the teacher, because as I'm going through this model, I want my students to understand that this is the vocabulary that comes under this model of what we're covering, okay? Now, from 5, we get into number 6, and when we talk about the unit relationships, when you all get into your TEKS and actually plan this model, the verbs that are highlighted within those standards, you're going to use that as your bridge to connect those topics. So as you can see, that's where those are coming from. Distinguish, compare, balancing, all of that are a part of your unit relationships. Okay, that's what glues everything together. Now, when we get into number 7, here are the unit self-test questions. A lot of times, I tell the teachers and I tell students that when you're doing this piece, you're gonna plan some of these questions with your team, but you as that teacher need to also plan those questions with your students. It's very important. So say for a Monday lesson, we plan this unit as a team, now I'm ready to implement it next week with my class. On day 1 of my lesson, I'm gonna only focus on bank fees. So as I focus on bank fees, I'm gonna probe the students to ask me questions that are related to bank fees, and then I'm going to add that in my box here for those unit self-test questions, okay? So there shouldn't be questions that you've already written out and put on here. Kind of help yourself with that by allowing your students to be a part of this piece. Because you want to know some of the questions that they have regarding bank fees, regarding a check register. Okay, so now, when we look here, we look at the unit schedule. I say this is very important for your students to understand because they need to know that day 1, we're going to launch the unit organizer. On day 2, or if we're still on day 1, we're gonna do a scavenger hunt about bank and fees. And notice this is my first topic of discussion. This is my topic of discussion first, okay? Now my next day I'm gonna get into the check register, check-in number 1, that's day 2. Then day 3 and 4. So now the students get an overall understanding of what they're going to cover in the unit by the week, okay? And this is also good when you have parents that are asking you, what is my child learning in your class? You can send this home every Friday with their progress report. They also have a way of seeing what's going on during the school day, okay? Next slide. Okay, so now, on the back of your map, the second part of your map, and we won't get into this today because of time segments here. We will do this on our next in-service, but this will be the breakdown of what kids are gonna understand, that they're gonna learn all this under bank fees. They're gonna learn all this under using a check register. They're gonna learn all this under using a debit and credit card. They're gonna learn all this about the credit report and value and everything that falls along with that. That's when we go into the actual breakdown of the components of what they need to know, okay?